Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the best social media metrics you're not using. It is my pleasure to be here with Zack Olson from / Marketing. For those of you who are joining us on the recording, welcome, welcome. We are so glad that you were able to find the time to listen to this after the fact, even if you weren't able to join us live. And for those of you who are here with us live, just a couple of reminders about the webinar. The chat feature is open. This is Amy Jauman, by the way. Boy, did I just blow right past introducing myself? I feel like I have decided I'm so famous I need no introduction. Is that what's happened to me? I didn't announce myself. But I'm Amy on the webinar, and you guys can message me privately if you'd like to send a question to Zack, or you can send a question to the entire group in the chat. I will be monitoring that. A few places here and there. We'll probably take a pause, see if there are any questions, and float them over to Zack to answer. Also, please use the chat feature if anything weird happens with technology. If something happens maybe where we cut out or something like that, we've got systems running, so we should be alerted if something like that happens, but we also appreciate feedback from the group if anything along those lines occurs. So with that, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Zack. You probably read about him when you signed up for the webinar, unless you're just a blind follower of NISM and you're like, hey, NISM is doing a community webinar, we're on board. So if you don't know Zack, he is the marketing ref. He is known for calling out the good, the bad, and the ugly of today's digital marketing field. So as an expert digital marketer, he goes around solving business problems, and then also collaborates with business owners on ideas on how to execute a solution. So I have also heard that he's a nice guy, and I can actually testify that now because I have spent some time with him. He's a certified Google partner and trainer. He works across multiple industries, and actually very similar to the National Institute for Social Media and our certified strategists, is very focused on helping people get the most out of their investment in their digital presence. So we are so fortunate to have him talking to us today. We're excited to hear what he has to say. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Zack to get us started.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Amy. And I just want to give a shout out to NISM for putting this on. I really appreciate it. I have an hour, so I want to be a little brevity, or have, I don't know the correct form, brevity.
Just say it confidently.
Yes, say it confidently. So I want to be short. There's a lot we can unpack. I want to take my time and unpack some of these metrics and help you understand, maybe from my perspective, an outside perspective. And I was telling, if you were on prior to 10 o'clock, Amy and I were kind of talking, the cool thing about this, if you're a social media marketer, I am not a social media marketer. So I envy you. I think you have a hard job to do. But I have a focus in analytics. So my background, I spent 8 years with Apple, the computer company, yes, during the Renaissance, or I like to think so, of retail and iPhone and iPad and just all kinds of that new wave of technology that flooded in. So I spent some time at the retail level and helping do some worldwide initiatives through the stores, and then do some marketing for iPhone 5 for our business folks. So I got to deal with analytics at kind of like the biggest level, web analytics, and try to transfer those to retail. So I left Apple and started helping clients with marketing, inbound marketing. If you're a social media marketer, you know what that means. And capturing analytics to help drive performance and understand what you're doing, if it's working or not. And so that's kind of the take I have. And so there are, well, let's just dig in. Welcome, everybody. Let's go. I already talked about me. That's me on my street. It looks awesome right now, but or in that picture. I was gonna say right now it's all beat up with construction and dirty lawns and stuff all over the place, as such as summer in Minnesota. I've been doing this for 10 years. Started back at Apple. I ran my own agency as a HubSpot partner. So if you're familiar with HubSpot, I know the inbound and the marketing automation game, and I know how that can benefit everybody. But really my focus is analytics, and I've been doing that for the last 3 years as a Google partner and a Google trainer. for companies. So that is my take. Should we get in? So let's talk about measurement. So I know everyone's like measurement. Social media is no different than any other channel in terms of measurement. Companies, it's a new medium, it's a new channel, it's a new thing that companies, businesses are trying to exploit for their own benefit, right? Everyone wants to use it to advertise on it, to reach customers, to sell their products, sell their services, you name it. And so the measurement tradition is continuing today, and this is kind of the take I want to ask you, is what I see today is too much of the traditional measurement taking place online and in digital realms, where the game has really certainly changed. So it started with print, radio, then moved to TV and web, and now social. So here's kind of the overview of how that looks. And I have my screen. Oh, there we go. So it started with print, right? So how do you measure, how did newspapers, how did magazines measure if they were doing right? So they measured it based on subscribers. And then how do they monetize it? This is how I'm going to take on everything. So how do you measure what is working, and how do you make money off of it, or how do you monetize it? Because everything needs to be monetized in some form or fashion, right? So in the early newspapers and magazines, and still to this day, how do they measure success? It's based on subscribers. There's probably a few other metrics now, but really this is the name of the game for them. How many readers can they reach? And then they monetize it by selling ads. And they sell ads based on, okay, so I have 1 million subscribers, my ad cost just went up. If you've got 1,000 subscribers, your ads don't cost as much on those platforms. Makes sense. Same thing for radio. So that same measurement strategy carried over to radio. And I'm gonna try to keep it quick because we're running up 10. So radio, same thing, right? Measurement of subscribers. What's our listener base look like? Even radio started to get like a little flaky. I didn't know how many people were actually listening. They could just take best guesses. And then again, measurement or performance and monetization based on ads. TV, same model, right? How many people are watching my show? How many people are watching my program? And then we monetize it with ads. TV, again, it's a best guess. There's no for sure. It's a numbers game. It's a sampling, but they don't know for sure for certain. And especially with TV, they don't know who specifically is watching, and that'll come into play later. Then we reach the web, the World Wide Web. And we started with monitoring and measuring subscribers to blogs, to chat rooms. We started to then get to measure traffic, how many people are coming in there. We started to measure contact. Are people actually contacting us from our website? So even though businesses may not be measuring it, in a ledger, but they were at least getting those phone calls, the phones to ring, and they knew that people were finding them online, finding their number, and hence the yellow pages is slowly fading away. And then we started to kind of get into the e-commerce side of things of the web and started to track downloads and purchases. And we monetized this through ads again, ads either on our website, such as a media outlet, or sales if we were doing sales. So now we get to social. And so social started to just take that same model, right? Which I think is unfortunate. It's a good starting place, but I think there's so much more we can grow with social. So we start measuring and monitoring how many subscribers we have, how many likes, followers, etc. Clicks, how many contacts we get, either via Messenger or whatever that looks like via either each channel. But now we can start selling things on social, so we can start tracking purchases and more. And so the measurement for the monetization is either sales, and right now I say customer service, but really once we get into these metrics, you understand this is really measuring your brand impact. And if you're not thinking about that, we're going to think about that towards the end of this class. Amy, if you ever want to jump in, by all means, I'm just giving you the open door now, but I'm going to keep rolling.
Yep, that sounds good.
Yeah, so what's happening today is we have so much data, right? There's so much data around us, so many ways these tools are collecting data, and that's a good thing, but it's also, you kind of wonder, like, why is there no good measurement? And it's based on what I was just sharing. It's based on tradition. And it seems like the traditional model is just not carrying through. We need some game change. We just need a new way to think about what we can measure, what's possible in new ways that benefit us. And so there's two ways that are really, it's really getting hurt. We have data overload. So you'll see IT minded analytics people that puke out a 30 metric report, right? You look, it's just like crazy. It's some kind of bar graph or line chart that has 80 lines on it, graphs going every which way. It's hard to read. You don't know what you're looking at. And they're like, oh, there's like 18 different data points in here that we can cross section, and it just is making it way more complicated than it needs to be. And Amy and I were talking about this before. It's the curse of the knowledge, right? So that IT-minded person may know exactly what's going on in their graph, but to a social media marketer or a CEO or business performance manager, simple is good. Then we get to the second point, is vanity metrics, and that's kind of that's probably the biggest nugget problem of today. There are so many metrics that people are looking at for social media, and they seem to be standardized, but in my view, they don't tell you a lot about success or about monetization factors. Things like likes and follows on their own don't tell you a whole heck of a lot about what you're doing on social media. So just because I have 1 million followers, it's not TV. I can't say I have 1 million followers. I mean, maybe you can, but we don't know who, if you're not knowing who they are, or if you're not finding a way to just reach those followers, it's not benefiting you. Now, there is an exception to that rule, like anything else. If you are a personality or an influencer or a media outlet, then yes, you want to take the traditional model and manage your subscribers, because that's how they get paid. They say we can reach 20 million people, 30 million people, etc., and then their advertising is reflected. But for the average business, for the average B2B or B2C or even service-based business, nonprofit, you name it, you need to know who you're looking at, who is following you, and what to do with it. All right, so vanity metrics, you can look it up. It's metrics that look good, but really don't tell you a whole heck of a lot about what's going on, right? Hey, we posted 10, we had 10 posts last month on Facebook, and your boss is like, I don't know, is that good? Like, does 10 posts, is that better than my competitor on the street? Like, what does 10 posts mean? I don't know what that means, right? So those vanity metrics, get away from vanity metrics. It has to tell you something about what you're doing. So here's another issue. This is the 2017 marketing technology landscape just for social media marketing and monitoring. So if you look at this graphic, you can start to see how many different tools are available. It is a booming sector of the economy. There's more and more of these tools and niche analytics, measurement, etc., coming out. So if you're a bigger company, what I'm seeing as well with this issue is you have one person using one tool and another person using another tool, and they may not speak the same language or spit the same numbers. And so that's where I mean about fragmented analysis. So this is one thing to really take care of, especially if you're using Sprout Social and Hootsuite and Ampsy and Clickable and all these different tools. You're gonna be incongruent with your numbers and your metrics, and that's gonna pose problems.
Zach,
so today, go ahead.
Can I chime in with something? You just hit on two really important points. And I know not everyone on our line is a certified social media strategist. Some of the people I'm looking at on our list here are kind of in the process, but I know a lot of people out there are either those internal or external consultants. And the topic that you just mentioned is one that I know we hear a lot about. It's the people that say, okay, I just went in this organization. They are split. We've got these. I have worked with marketing departments, the same department that's using 2 or 3 different
Right.
tools that all do the same thing. So what you are talking about is money, right? Like this is costing the organization. This decision to not align is absolutely costing them money on their bottom line. And so I just wanted to stop and point that out, because I do think that that's something that isn't always easy to articulate. So I wanted to make sure that all of, especially anybody in an advisory role, that they are able to grab onto that, especially with such an overwhelming graphic of like how many different ways people can go. So I just thought that was a really great point. I wanted to make sure was emphasized.
Yeah, it's a problem, and it's everywhere. Every client I work with has this issue. Multiple CRMs, multiple platforms for marketing automation, you name it. And even marketing automation right now, it's not part of this, but they're starting to include social media metrics as well. So you really got to get that into place, figure out what people are pulling. And again, this is considered probably second or third party analytics. And when I talk about analytics, first party means direct from the user. So if you think of Google Analytics, it collects website data direct from when a user is on your website, and it feeds it to you directly. So that's first party data. Same with Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Those are all, when they're collecting data on their specific platform, that's first party data. When it gets funneled into another tool, it'd be second or even third party. And that's where, each step, each level you go can muddy the waters. And so I'm just going to keep going. Thank you, Amy. So what do we measure, right? You've got a whole bunch of data. Facebook has a lot of data. I don't know if anybody's dig into there. Twitter has a lot of data. LinkedIn now is starting to get it. So if anyone's familiar now with GDPR, PRRP, good data, I think it's GDPR, the new, yep, that's the one. So LinkedIn now has like 60 different privacy settings. So if you haven't been familiar with that, you might want to go take a look, because there's like 60 different settings in there of all kinds of different things that LinkedIn is now sharing data with all kinds of tools. So the point is, there's a lot there to be measured. There's a lot sharing out. So what do we measure? All right. So this gets into we're going to start getting to the meat now, meat and potatoes. And plus, every tool has its own kind of standardized dashboard. You'll look at any tool you get. Hootsuite is a primary one. It just pulls up for you. You have no way to like really edit it. It just says like, here's your likes, here's your followers, here's your whatever, right? It just gives it for you. And a lot of people just accept that as gospel and run with it, and they report on that, and they think if it's going up and to the right, that they're doing a good job. And maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, but I want to just help you think about something different. So conversation rate. This is the first metric we're going to talk about. Number of comments per post. So why is this important? Because it's social. It's social media. The social is part of the platform. It's meant to be conversational. It's meant to build your tribe. It's meant to connect with your customers, your target audience, etc. So what's happening now on social media is a lot of shouting. And that's what radio and TV does, right? It's just a lot of like, I'm a program, I'm just shouting. I don't even know who I'm shouting at. So the idea with social media is who's on the other end, typically, right? You know their demographic, you know the region they're part of. We know what language they speak, things they care about, etc. We know who, so stop shouting at them and just blanketing a message, right? And now we can measure if what you're saying is connecting via conversation rate. So how do we measure this? We measure it by number of comments per post. So if you take, I'll give you for instance, so if I sent out 10 posts last month and each post had 100 comments, right? Well, let's say I get 1,000 comments total of the 10 posts. So 100 comments per post would be my conversation rate, right? 100 comments per post. Now you can start to see your post average conversationally, if what you're putting out there is actually driving conversation. I hear a lot, and I'm not a social media marketer, but I hear a lot of this strategy from social media managers. They want to build community. I don't know if that's the term you guys use, but they want a place for community, because we can't have everybody in our office, right? We can't have everybody at one place in the street, but social media allows a place for community to happen, to share common ideas, thoughts, issues, struggles, successes, etc. And so social media is a great place to start to build your tribe. When I talk about tribe, that's a Seth Godin. If you're a marketer, Seth Godin is a famous marketer, writer, wrote a lot of books. He wrote a book called, I think it's just called Tribe, Building Your Tribe. He talks about just surrounding yourself with, your immediate market that follows you and believes in you and will help you succeed. So you want to build your tribe. This is also helping to know your value. If you have a low comment rate, if not a lot of people are commenting on your posts, maybe you want to switch that up. And maybe that's not part of your strategy. So again, this plays into, what are you trying to get out of social media? What is the purpose? What do you want to think about? How do you want to engage with your audience? So if building a community, building your tribe is a focus, then you want to look at conversation rate, how many comments you're getting.
Zach, can we take a question here?
Yeah, go ahead.
So if there is a group that their goal isn't generating comments on a public platform, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So if some of us work for organizations that may not have an audience that is comfortable, for whatever reason, being connected to the organization, right? Like that's kind of a challenge in of itself. An obvious example might be some sort of political affiliation, or
Sure.
something like weight loss or drug addiction, or something that, while people look for community, they aren't necessarily in a place where they want to engage with that community on a public forum. So it could kind of give a false negative as to how engaged they are, because they might be marking you as see first. They might be, following you and reading absolutely everything, but because of their business, they're just not able to engage online. So what do you recommend people do if that is their business model? Like how can they still somehow use this conversation rate and make good use of that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and not every metric is for everybody. So we'll take on your strategy, but in those instances, there are private groups and there are private channels that are invite only, etc. That is, I'm just thinking about social media. It is all about social, and it's all about connecting. So if part of your strategy is just to blast information and help to drive them somewhere else, we'll get into that in a second, and not start a conversation, that'd be different. But if you want to have a conversation in a safe place, I would suggest any kind of private channel. Facebook would obviously be the number one for that, because you can have private groups, you can have private pages that are invite only and can provide a safe place, and then you can take that conversation rate into the private sector. Does that help answer?
Yep, I think that's spot on, right? Like and I think it's a great call out to simply say it's the same measurements aren't for everyone, which I think we all acknowledge on some level. But
Right.
I think it's also important to talk about the fact that we can't all set and we should be advising our internal and external clients of this as well. We can't all set the expectation that we're going to have this boom of conversation online. And I was talking about things people wouldn't want to talk about. I think there are also instances where information is valuable and people are interested. It's just not very conversational, right? Like it's just not something you
Yes.
necessarily kind of respond to. So, and as long as I have you, I do have one other question that came in, if you're willing to take it now.
Yep. Go for it.
So how about, or do you, and actually I'm now realizing we might be a little ahead of the game, do you assign value to types of comments? So for example, if somebody, if you had a post that had 30 comments, but they were all like, congratulations, compared to another post that had 30 comments that were thoughtful, probing questions, things like that. Is there a difference in that? Or when you talk about conversation rate, do you put all comments, really on any platform, do you put all comments in the same bucket, or do you see value in
Yeah.
parsing out their?
Yeah, both. I mean, from a high level to get started, count any comment, because it is an action. If you think about, someone has to actually type in, they have to take the time, right? So that's an action that I wanna monetize or metric out. But then again, if you're getting a lot of comments and you're building your community, now you can start to you can export all your comments. I don't know if everybody knows this. You can export that data, and then Excel and macros can do wonderful things in parsing out keywords, key terms that are often used. I've done this for a couple clients. So I took, a couple thousand comments and was able to identify common keywords that were used, like wellness and body and fitness. There's certain keywords that they're using. And the comments then now give you, what are they talking about? What are some of the key terms that they're using? And that can help you drive further reach or value to your customers. Does that make sense? So yes. Amy's
Yes, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Amy was on mute.
Yeah, I mean, these aren't for everybody, but from my perspective as a marketer, when I look at social media, and I'm looking at it as a whole, I look at it as, how do I extract value from these channels, right? If I'm not selling products directly on social media, if I don't have an e-commerce, I need to monetize and value this in a different way. And social media, with the ability to know who's following you, know who's in your tribe, and to see their direct feedback, their direct comments, that's what I want to value, and that's what I want to track. Am I producing content that is conversational, or maybe I'm producing content that's just something else? And we'll get into that too. But if your tact is to build community, then look at producing posts and content that is desired to gain conversation. And you want to be careful, because I could do a Kim Kardashian post and get 100 million comments on it. But is that valuable to your tribe, right? So think about what's valuable to your tribe. All right, I'm going to keep moving. So conversation rate, about every single, the cool thing is about every single channel can measure this. Even your blog, right? If you've got a blog and you accept comments, you can start to say, like, this blog has so many comments. So even transfers even to the website metrics. The only one is Pinterest, because there's really no, and I could be wrong here. Maybe chime in if I'm wrong. I don't think there's any way to add comments really to Pinterest, or there's no good way. And the last I looked at this was probably like 3-4 months ago. There's no metric that's being measured for comments. There was an ability to add comments on Pinterest. I'd have to go through post by post. Am I wrong there, Amy, or am I right?
So I think there used to be, or rather, when you repin, you had the option to change. I think though, and Pinterest is absolutely not one of my top platforms, but I think it would have to stay off the list.
Got it. Okay. So the cool thing here, I'm back to first party data. Twitter, I can pull out a report that shows me the number of times I've posted and the number of comments or retweets, quoted retweets, right? Not just retweets, quoted retweets, comments, etc. on my posts. Same with Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, Instagram, and YouTube. So now I can take the number of comments divided by the number of posts, and I get my conversation rate. If I want to take this a step further and do like a weighted analysis, if you're not familiar with analysis or analytics, this is one step further to do a weighted analysis. So let's say you have 5 followers, or you do 5 posts, and one post gets you, 100 comments, and the other 2 get you 3. Well, your average is going to be pretty good. So what we do is we do weighted. We do it for every 1,000. So you multiply the 5 into 1,000, and then your comment rate divided by 1,000. If that doesn't make sense, you can reach out to me afterwards. But anyways, you're taking it by 1,000, extrapolating it out and getting a weighted view. Sorry if I confused anybody, but it's a way to just not get a 20% average, 20 comments per post when you know it was all just one. I want to see a weighted average. Okay, moving on.
Hey,
the next metric.
Sorry, Zach, can you run through that weighted average one more time? We've got a request from the group. Can you just run through the calculation again of the weighted average, how you would factor that?
Yeah, so you want to take, so in terms of, what were we on, conversation rate?
Yep.
So in terms of conversation rate, so it's number of comments per post. You want to extrapolate that up to 1,000. So you say, let's say you got 100 comments on 5 posts. I would want to extrapolate by 1,000. So 100 divided by 1,000 would be 10. And then that's what I would use. You don't even have to use the post. So about 10 as a weighted average, 10 comments per post. Does this make sense? This gives me a much better metric, because if I had 100 on one and 1 on, or 95 on one and 5 on the other 3, 10 is much closer to the 3 than 25. Are you seeing my math there? I don't have a way to like a whiteboard it. But if I had 5 posts,
I think
if I had 100 comments,
and I
100
think
comments on 5. Yeah, go ahead.
We've got some confirmation that it is crystallizing. We can also do a follow-up, because I think this is a great example of something that, like 2 examples in writing, is helpful. So we can throw something like that together after the call too, especially if you're anything like me, when it makes sense right now, and then you get off the call and you're like, wait, what was that again? So we can put that as a follow-up.
Yeah, keep it as simple as you can, but if I had, you get it. If I had 100 comments for 5 posts, my average is 20. Well, if I extrapolate out to 1,000, so 100 comments for 1,000 posts as just a weighted average, I now get 10 comments per post. So 10 is much closer to the actual number than 20 is, if that makes sense. So I'm getting a weighted average. Okay, that's usually how it works. Or you take out some of your high performers and do a weighted average that way. A different trick we use. So you take out the one that has 100, you calculate out the rest of the 4, and you're good to go. So all these metrics can be pulled firsthand, right? You don't need another tool. You can pull them direct from, and I know that may be cumbersome and tedious, but I'm sharing with you a way to not muddy the waters and extract true value out of the channels you're engaged with. All right, moving on. Applause rate. Sounds straightforward. You heard me talk about vanity metrics like likes and favorites, etc. But on their own, likes tell me nothing. Likes and favorites per post, however, can tell me a good applause rate. These are endorsements of what you're sharing. Back to your point about maybe they're posts that are private or not conversational, but people find value in them and they like them or favorite them. And when they like and favorite them, then their network sees, etc. So it is an endorsement. This is the way I would see it from an analytics standpoint. If I put a post out there and 100 people are liking it, that's an endorsement of the kind of content that I'm putting out there. But don't let one post hijack your numbers, right? So often the misconception is to look at all your posts as a whole, when maybe you're, and you'll see this too, if you ever have an offer or a deal or you're sharing like something free, those posts get a lot of likes. And just my experience, it could be different for you. And usually like if it's around Christmas or Black Friday, like, hey, check out our 2-for-1 deal, blah, blah, that gets a ton of traffic, but it can skew the rest of the year's numbers. So again, that's where a weighted average comes into place. But getting an applause rate, likes and favorites per post, helps you to think about, is that number going up? Is it going down? What is my average? And is the type of content I'm putting out meet or exceed those numbers? So if you think about brand, if your brand awareness or increasing your brand reach, or maybe your new products or etc., what kind of content are you producing to help deepen that relationship, to deepen your reach? Does this make sense? So I'm going to go a little bit further. What do you do with it? You get to know what your customers like. Again, don't just measure likes and follows, etc. On its own, you can tell your boss, we had 400 likes last month. He doesn't know what that means, or she doesn't know what that means. But if you said we had 10 posts and the average post got 100 likes or favorites, so we have about 100, 100 points or 100 likes per post applause rate. That's our applause rate. That's starting to make more sense. And now you start to know what are your weaker performing posts and your better performing posts. And if you're a social media strategist or expert, you, I think, this is my feeling, this is probably where you'd want to live, right? Is you want to know what is successful and what is not successful. What's the dud versus what's the home run. So applause rate can help you do that. Focus your content, and you want to aim for consistency, right? So it's a good way to try new things. So once you know what your average applause rate, you say, hey, we're going to get 100 likes per post. That's our consistency. You can try new things and see if you're meeting or being below that average, etc. It helps you define where your value lies. Does this make sense to everybody?
So
where to measure this? Go ahead.
Looks good online so far. No new questions. I would add one more thought to that is also measuring what translates to dollars, because that's a common question that we get as strategists. So we might have something that, okay, so here's an example. NISM will put memes out every once in a while about, hashtag the trouble with being a social media professional or whatever, like funny videos or things like that.
Sure.
And we get tons of engagement, and that's something that might strengthen our community, but it doesn't directly translate to dollars, as opposed to something like our Cyber Monday sale or things along those lines. So I would just for most internal and external consultants, I think that's a nice piece to add to the conversation, because again, we speak the language, but a lot of times the people we're talking to can't make that leap, and they may not understand that some of those really valuable posts strengthen the community, even if they don't have a direct measurable ROI.
Right. And I'm going to talk about those metrics in just a few minutes. So it's a good little segue. So all these play together. What you'll see at the end is all 5 of these that I'm going to talk about, they play together to help you give a better realistic picture of the value you're adding and the value you're extracting. So the cool thing about applause rate, it's measured everywhere. Every single channel right now has a way to like or heart or share, not share, but number ones. So you got Facebook, Instagram. Are you looking at my phone? Oh, there we go. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, it's number of likes per post. Pinterest, number of saves per post. Twitter, number of favorite clicks per post. And Google Plus, number of ones per post. As just a sidebar, Google Plus is, if you're into SEO, Google Plus is probably where you should start to focus. Google Plus, nobody uses Google Plus except a few of us, like me, because it's not flooded yet, but has tremendous SEO value. Likewise with Pinterest. So just as a little nugget for any of you those out there, Pinterest has SEO value because you're actually taking images and content direct from your website, putting it on Pinterest. It adds a link. People click and view that link and share and get the benefit. Okay. So this is applause rate. Easy to measure. You get your metric, right? Number of likes, favorites, saves, number ones, etc. But now extrapolate that out per post and get your consistency and understand what's valuable, what's not working. Because if your average is 100 and you see posts that are below that, now you can look at those posts and see, like, why didn't they perform as well? And maybe you need to tweak or rework the copy, the image, etc. The meme, so to speak. All right. Those are the 2 main ones I want to talk about, but I have 3 more that I want to talk about. One of them, Amy kind of mentioned here, but so these 5 will work together for your true success. So back to the earlier statement, everyone's using the standardized traditional metrics. I'm asking you to go a little bit deeper to think about the true value of what you're doing. So the next one I want to share is amplification rate. So everyone knows number of shares, et cetera, but again, take this as an average value, number of shares per post. The reason is social, each node in your social network has its own network. And if you're a social media strategist or expert, you know this already. So each share is an exponential reach, right? So everyone that shares your post now shares it with their network, and on the ladder goes. So amplification rate can tell you number of shares per post, how each post is being amplified. And you can actually start to measure this to say if this post, and there are calculations out there. So if I got 100 shares on Facebook, and you know the average network on Facebook is 50. I'm throwing a number out there. I don't know. I'm not the, Amy might know, but you can, so if I average 100 shares and the average network is 50, 100 times 50, I get what, 5,000 extra views for every 100 shares. Amy wants to jump in with that actual number.
I really want to just say thank you for thinking I know that, but I don't know that. And I I did want to chime in though with a question that came in, just because I know you're still in the process of this, but will you talk about how employees of an organization can be used to amplify? If you have any advice on how to get people within an organization to amplify. Does that make sense?
Do it. That's my whole.
That's solid advice, Zach. Thank you.
If you're, again, if one of your goals, so if I have a couple of new clients that are trying to break ground or break into a new industry, if you really want to be amplification and get your message out there to as many people, your employees or friends and family you need to get them into shape. They need to help you out. There's really no, you can't make them, at least not that I can think of, but I would make it kind of a good best practice to either follow your company, like your company page, and likewise share content with your network, because you're going to get such a bigger reach.
For sure.
Go ahead, Amy.
The piece that I thought of while you were talking was the value of having a social media policy as it ties back to this.
Yes.
Because then you can, because it really is a dicey times we live in that we can't really make people, in most cases, engage. And there are other cases where we may not want people to, depending on the situation and
Right.
just a lot of different factors. But that social media policy can help kind of clarify that. And then the other piece that came to mind, I think of how many of us have people within our community that want to support us and literally don't know how. As a writer, I run into this a lot. People will say like, oh, they'll send me an email that says, congratulations, your new book is coming out. And I'm like, for the love of Pete, don't congratulate me via email. Put it on some platform where other people will see it, or go do a review or whatever. Right. But the point of that is good intentions sometimes just need education. So this could be a place for social media professionals to help out as well.
Yes, you need a policy. You need absolutely. I don't know how to write one of those, but I'm sure you can find someone that does from NISM. Now, again, so all these kind of play a part in your strategy, right? So you have conversation rate. I'm building community. I'm monitoring and measuring comments based on what I produce in social media. Then I look at applause. What are my followers liking the most or the least? And what's my average rate of success? Amplification and shares. Now, these are all different actions. So that's the other thing to think about. These are not all just, what was I ran into, might have been Hootsuite. They had everything lumped into engagements. And maybe you if you're a social media person, you know what I'm talking about. Anything that is just an engagement, a click, a share, a like, a save, they just lump all together. Big mistake, because they're all very different actions if you think about them. Liking something does something very different than actually sharing it out or retweeting or quoting a retweet or adding a comment. Very different activity that has a very different purpose for you as a brand or as a company. So this helps you, back to amplification rate. It's looking at your posts that help you share, right? Getting what is being shared. What is so, I think this is probably one of the big ones. What is so valuable to your customers or your audience that they want to share it with others? I think that is probably one of the truest values that you can add. You've added such a valuable piece to them that they want to share it with others, right? That's kind of awesome. Amplification rate. All right, I'm going back and forth and it's got some lag. The next one, I'm an SEO guy, I'm a web guy. So analytics, so this is awesome for me when I look at referral rate. Okay, referral is the new word of mouth. Or, I mean, it is the word of mouth. It used to be called word of mouth, and in the digital realm, it's called referral. So this is where, like, if you talk to SEO or marketing people, they'll say I have backlinks, right? All these backlinks from places. If you get traffic or users from those backlinks, that's a referral. So that's good. What's social, and Amy touched on this earlier, if I'm getting a lot of likes and shares, etc., but I have no way, I'm not selling anything, I don't know how to really monetize that, you can start the monetization process here. We'll get to the next step on referral rate, number of clicks per post. So every post you have a hyperlink to hopefully something on your website, a landing page, etc. If you don't, then that's fine. Then I would strip those out of this metric. But anything that you want to drive back, the goal, right, is social, is to either provide impact, but also drive them back to your website to continue reading your blog post or to look at your video or to engage in your services, to engage your products, etc. Unless, well, media companies would do the same thing. So as an SEO person, this is big for me. I want to leverage social to drive traffic to my website, and specific action-oriented traffic. I want to do a post that they go to a specific page and do a specific thing that I can measure. These referrals can now be counted as assistive conversions, right? And I'm going to throw maybe some terms out there maybe you don't understand. We can do follow-up later. But so Google, the way Google talks about conversions from an analytical perspective is macro and micro conversions. If you've never heard of those before, it's okay. Macro conversions are considered the actual money, where money changes hands. It could be a sign-up. It could be a purchase. In this case, it's a registration for a webinar. If it's free, that's fine. Whatever that final result is, that's a macro conversion. And everything leading up to that final goal is a micro conversion. So if I'm getting referrals from Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, referral traffic, and that's contributing to my final conversions, then that's helping me. Now I can understand my number of clicks per post, what is my referral rate, and how is that driving actual bottom line ROI? I'm going to take a pause because I'm starting to get heady on some of this stuff, but I want everyone to know the referral rate. I love this. So if you're a social media person, you have digital marketers or SEO people that you work with, if you're using this metric, you will become the new best friend. Lots of Starburst.
I just want to chime in with this as well. So a couple of times as you've been talking today, Zach, some stuff has come up that is often a differentiating factor between professional social media marketers and people who are social media people on the side, or that kind of blow a lot of smoke. And I think this one is a really good example of one that is a way of demonstrating that not only do you know what you're talking about and what's valuable, but you're able to share that information with a a client in a way that is meaningful to them. I had an experience where I was on the other side of the table where someone was kind of pitching analytics, and it was ethically disappointing, if that makes sense, because the person didn't know my background, and I could tell that what they were, which was, I guess that's ethically questionable too. Maybe it was unfair of me not to disclose that I knew he was full of crap, but he came in with all of these big numbers and all of this kind of fluffy stuff that really didn't have any meaning. And there are people out there doing that. And so those of us on the call, certified strategists, obviously, we're doing this, right? We're doing this kind of stuff. So, okay, we don't have any new questions on the chat. I just wanted to buy a little time in case anybody had anything there. So I think we're good.
Yeah, I got a couple more slides. I'll try to wrap up a little early and then we can take questions. But referral rate now is going to start to help you monetize the content, the type of content you're producing, and part of your strategy. So you're starting to kind of get a piece here. You're going to want content that is commented on, adding value, that is liked, so that they're giving you endorsements, right? Like, yep, this is good. This is good stuff. Keep it coming. The share. What are they sharing out to their network? I'm extending my brand reach. And referral rate is a specific type of post. You're highlighting a brand, a product, a service, or something, or a new blog post that maybe is lengthy. You just want to drive traffic to your site. So it's a different type of purpose, purpose-driven social media. I don't know if that's a thing, but okay, referral rate. Now the last one is probably my favorite. Next to, I like referral rate too, but let's see, there it goes. Economic value. So this can be sliced a lot of different ways depending on you, but this is where the money comes in. So I like to take a sum of the short and long-term revenue. And if you have assisted conversions, it gets a little trickier, but it's still measurable. So if you have a widget that you sell for $100, right? And if they saw Google, and by the way, Google Analytics can track all of this for you for free. So don't be like, oh, I need to get some big expensive tool to manage this. Or you can manage it just in a spreadsheet with just what the numbers you have. If you sell a widget for $100 on the site and you know that your click per post, right? Maybe it's 10 clicks per post. You know that 20 clicks were generated to that landing page or to that product page. You can now assign a value to every click. Maybe it's $1, I don't know, whatever your profit margin may be. I'm getting really deep into financial stuff, but you can start to add a value to each click to that page now that contributed to your conversion. So if each click is worth $1, then those 20 clicks are worth 20 bucks. And now that post, each post that gets 20 clicks is worth $20 to you. Are you seeing how this makes sense? And you can even multiply this over time, over a short period, if it's a promotion period, etc. This is the true ROI of social media, and your bosses, your managers will love you if you can produce, here's the bottom line number of revenue, profit, etc. that is being generated from the social media activity. I can tell you like 9 times out of 10, this is never happening. Maybe 9.5 times out of 10. A lot of the social media, or a lot of the clients I work with, they have social media. They're not tracking the monetary economic impact. I think that's a big mistake. So there's KPIs in here. I'm assuming a lot of people know what KPI is, but if you don't, KPI is just a key performance indicator. You can assign a value to anything that you want to measure. So if it is shares, if it's comments, if you want to add a value to that, maybe it's valuable to your brand, then you can assign a value and start to understand the economic impact that the brand has. Whoa, I just went way deep. Now you can even, I mentioned cost savings there too, because if you talk about, I'll get the last screen here. If you talk about paid advertising, if you're doing paid campaigns on social and they're driving traffic, but you just have regular posts that are driving similar traffic, you can look at what you paid, what paid traffic cost you and what it drove, and what just organic free earned posts generate for you. And you can say like, hey, if we just do these posts and didn't do the paid, look how much we're saving in terms of our budget. I know that might be a little deep, but I'm happy to talk about that afterwards. So to kind of to finalize this, to sum up, that's what I want to talk about, to sum up. Don't look at social media as a one-size-fits-all. I know you probably know this as a social media. This was actually surprising to me, and I was a HubSpot partner, HubSpot certified. I'm a SharpSpring partner now. I understand inbound marketing and automation. I looked at social media as just one channel. So the way marketing automation, marketing people work is I'm going to produce a post and I'm going to send it to every social media channel. Like the same copy, the same message, the same link to every channel. And then I'm hoping and praying that something happens from it. So I want you to think about each social channel as an individual, because as I started getting into analytics and metrics, I get clients that so Instagram is where they get the most comments. Instagram is where you're going to build your tribe. Facebook is getting the most shares. Okay, you're going to amplify your brand on Facebook. So those are two different posts. Referral rate. My referral rate from Twitter is amazing. So Twitter is helping me from an economic standpoint and referral rate. So Twitter is a different kind of post, right? So think about them as individuals. Use all these metrics together, and they also work hand in hand with paid efforts too. So if you're doing, I'm trying to wrap this up. If you're doing like ads on Facebook, ads on Instagram, LinkedIn ads, promoted tweets, promotions on Twitter, you can use the same metrics and then compare what organic metrics look like versus paid metrics look like. Because if you're paying for metrics and maybe your shares, likes, etc. is not as good as organic, well, maybe you have the wrong paid strategy, so you can start to figure out what's working and what's not. Okay. And that's me. Oh, let me see. It's loading. Oh, there it goes. Okay, there's a few minutes left, and I'm here afterwards too if you want to stay and have the questions. But Amy, is this okay to share a little bit about me? You want me to talk about
you
what
bet.
I do on
I would say you're spot on. We've got about 2 minutes left, and we always end our webinars on time out of respect for people that have to move on to their next meeting.
Yes.
So if you need to go, we understand. If you have questions, just a reminder, chat them in. I have been keeping up with them throughout and asking them as people have been sending them in. So thanks for that. So yep, I will kick it back to you, and I'm just going to eyeball the chat box to see if any more come in.
Sure. Again, so thanks everybody. Just a real recap. So I'm Zack Olson, founder of /marketing. That's our tagline up there. Understand customers, know competitors, measure business. We're analytics focused marketing. So what we do is just that. We do audits on a lot of your marketing efforts. So just to help you understand what's working and what's not. And we come from an analytics perspective. So we can look at the type of activities that you're doing and what is the value that they're driving and help you to focus your efforts there. We can help set up analytics, set up reporting, and then of course we consult on everything on as you need. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions or needs in that area. But it was a pleasure. It is 11 o'clock. I hope you got a lot out of it. There's a lot we can talk about. I mean, social media analytics can be so deep. We can go on all day. But I'm hoping that those 5 help you really hone in on things that you can care about and focus on. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, NISM.
Yes, thank you, Zack, for joining us. It looks like we're just getting thank yous in the chat box. So I think we have wrapped up our questions. I wanted to share one other thing I forgot to chime in with. Zack made such a great point about factoring out those economic considerations. So one of the components that I see being a stumbling block for making that happen is time management. So I love conversations like this where we learn how to do these calculations and connecting with people like Zack who can help us find these meaningful ways of expressing data. But there's another piece to that I see a lot of people stumble on, and that's associated with setting time aside. And we're all busy. It's not that I don't understand how this happens, but just another reminder that When Zack talks about this stuff, it sounds easy and very doable, but it does require time and a learning curve. So I guess it's the teacher in me wants to always remind people of that. So more thanks and thanks and thanks for Zack on the in the chat box, but I think we are good with questions, so we will go ahead and shut down the webinar. Thank you again, everyone, for attending, and Zack for sharing all this wonderful information with us, and we look forward to seeing everybody in our next webinar.
Thanks, everybody.